I have watched armies fall not because they lacked strength, but because they lacked discipline in how they used it. In war, a blade drawn too early dulls before the true fight begins. In life, money spent too quickly is the same. You think spending is harmless, a transaction, a convenience, a small indulgence, but what you do with your coin reveals more than your desires. It reveals your formation. It exposes your inner commander, or your lack thereof. Spending is not a neutral act. It is a declaration of your strategy. Every time you release a coin from your grasp, you choose whether that motion was born of impulse or of intention, and in that choice, your battlefield is decided. I do not speak to those who are rich in silver, yet poor in control. I do not speak to those who measure their worth by what they own, rather than what they can command themselves to wait for. I speak to the one who suspects that something is wrong, that their money vanishes like smoke not because of theft, but because of surrender. Quiet, subtle, internal surrender. You call it retail therapy. You call it treating yourself. You call it just this once. I call it strategic collapse. Understand this. An impulsive general loses battles before they begin. A commander who acts from feeling rather than formation will fall into every trap set by the enemy. You too are surrounded by traps. But yours do not come from foreign soldiers. They come from marketing, from false urgency, from endless noise telling you that happiness can be bought and boredom must be cured by consumption. This is not about being frugal. This is not about counting pennies. This is about knowing who is in command of your hand before it reaches for your wallet. Are you the general, or are you the hostage? The enemy has studied your movements. Algorithms know when you are most vulnerable. Advertisements are tailored to bypass your logic and whisper directly to your appetite. They are snipers of your self-control, aiming not at your mind, but at your moment of hesitation. Impulse is their weapon. Intention is your shield. But a shield is useless if not raised, and intention cannot be reactive. It must be prepared, forged, trained like a soldier ready for ambush. If you do not train your intention, you will default to emotion. And emotion, untrained, is the perfect puppet. You say, "It was on sale." I say, "Then it was a trap with a ribbon on it." You say, "It was just a coffee." I say, "Then you've lost the morning war of formation." You say, "I'll start budgeting next month." I say, "You've already lost to the enemy named delay." Every battle of spending begins long before the coin is drawn. It begins in the formation of your habits, in the drills of your discipline, in the small decisions made in the silence of your daily routine. Do not ask if something is affordable. Ask if it aligns with your formation. Does it serve the mission, or does it serve the moment? A soldier who deserts his post for pleasure weakens the line. A habit that deserts your strategy weakens your future. I have studied war, and war teaches this. The strongest armies are not the most aggressive. They are the most composed. The ones who can hold their fire, who can wait, who can act from principle and not pressure. Your financial battlefield is no different. If your spending is impulsive, your future is a hostage. But if your spending is intentional, your wealth becomes a fortress. You do not need to become a miser. You need to become a general. Know when to strike. Know when to wait. Know when to march past the temptation without drawing your sword. This is the first formation. Learn to see spending as a battlefield. Not because you must fear every purchase, but because you must never surrender without knowing it. And most people are surrendering daily, not to a tyrant but to themselves. To the weaker version of themselves that says, "I deserve this." To the fearful voice that says, "What if I miss out?" To the lazy general who cannot hold the line for even one more day. But I tell you this, Hold the line once, and you will feel your strength return. Hold the line again, and you will feel your direction sharpen. Keep holding, and you will no longer envy others because you will be too busy commanding yourself. Discipline is not about restriction. It is about direction. And your money, like your army, must not march without purpose. Stand still when others run. Wait when others grab. Let your silence grow stronger than their noise. Let your restraint become your power. Because in war and in wealth, victory does not belong to the first to strike. It belongs to the last to break. An intention never breaks. A general does not fear movement. He fears uncontrolled movement. In the same way, do not fear spending. Fear spending without structure. For structure is where discipline lives, and without discipline, all wealth is temporary. Let me show you what I've seen. I have watched empires rise on patience and fall on appetite. I have seen kings outlast war through rationing, only to be destroyed in times of peace by their own indulgence. Because it is not war that bankrupts the unwise. It is what they do when the pressure lifts. It is what they do with their comfort. And that is where you live now, not in chaos, but in the lull between attacks. That is when the weak drop their weapons. That is when the untrained commander says, "I've earned this." But what you think you've earned often costs more than what you've saved. Your future does not care how hard your day was. Your vision does not care how tempted you were. The strategy does not bend because your emotions shout louder. The plan remains, or it collapses, and most collapse slowly. Not in a single moment, but in dozens of forgotten ones. You do not lose control in one grand explosion. You lose it one $7 swipe at a time, one unplanned scroll at midnight, one ad that convinces you that the problem you didn't have now needs a solution you must buy. This is not spending. This is sabotage. Do not tell me you are strategic if your bank account reflects chaos. Strategy is not what you say. It is what you execute. And execution is boring, quiet, repetitive. It is choosing not to feel powerful for a moment so that you become powerful for decades. And that is where the war is lost, in the hunger for now. Impulse whispers, "Just this once." Intention answers, "Only if it serves the mission." Impulse reaches with open hands. Intention draws the line and says, "Not yet." Impulse is a traitor in your own ranks, and like all traitors, it must be identified and removed, not with anger, but with clarity. You must know what triggers your waste. Is it boredom? Comparison? The feeling of being left behind? You must see these not as feelings, but as enemy scouts. They creep in silently, painting targets on your mind. If you do not intercept them, you will hand over your wealth without ever realizing you surrendered. The battlefield of spending is not in the store. It is in the scroll. It is in the silence after a hard day. It is in the room you enter alone with a device that already knows what kind of weapon to use against you. But here is your advantage. You can create armor, not physical, psychological, structural, strategic. You set rules not to restrict yourself, but to release your power. A boundary is not a prison. It is a perimeter. It tells you where your fortress ends and the enemy begins. You build habits not to become robotic, but to preserve your focus for what actually matters. When you eliminate the decision of, "Should I buy this?" by knowing already what serves your mission, you free your energy for battle. And in a world of constant noise, energy is the greatest currency. You see, most people lose because they spend emotional energy on decisions they should have pre-decided. They go into the market without a map, then blame the vendors for the detour. But the truth is simple. You cannot blame the world for tempting you if you walked in without a strategy. You cannot curse the ad if your plan had no guardrails. You cannot win a battle you didn't even know you were fighting. So know it now. You are being watched, not by enemies, but by your own future. And every decision you make is casting a vote, not just for what you buy, but for who you become. Will you be the general who abandoned formation at the first sign of ease, or the one who built a fortress so quiet no enemy ever noticed how powerful he became? Victory will not come with applause. It will come with control. It will come when your accounts are calm, when your life no longer reacts, it responds, when your choices are not emotional noise, but strategic echoes of a deeper clarity. That clarity does not arrive by accident. It is summoned, trained, chosen. And the first step is this. Decide now that every dollar you spend is a soldier. You do not send soldiers to die for a craving. You send them to build, to defend, to expand your reach. If your spending does not do this, it is betrayal, not investment. And betrayal, even self-inflicted, has consequences. But control, that has rewards you cannot yet imagine. Wealth is not the absence of spending. It is the presence of command. So ask yourself, are you spending because of impulse or because of intention? Only one leads to peace, and peace, in a world of chaos, is not a product. It is power. I will now show you how impulse hides, not like a beast, but like a friend, and that is what makes it dangerous. Impulse does not crash into your life like an enemy sword. It knocks gently. It wears the face of comfort. It disguises itself as self-care, as reward, as spontaneity. But understand this. Just because something feels good does not mean it serves you. And just because something feels harmless does not mean it's not costing you something vital. A soldier who cannot distinguish between a civilian and a spy will eventually be ambushed. Likewise, a spender who cannot distinguish between a harmless want and a financial ambush will eventually lose his treasury, not all at once, but in slow erosion. And erosion is the most dangerous kind of loss. You do not fear it. You don't feel it. But one day you look back and realize that your future is smaller, not because of disaster, but because of 1,000 small concessions. Impulse is not the decision to buy one thing. It is the pattern of surrendering to your lesser self. It says, it's only $10. But $10 repeated without thought is not 10. It is a leak. And leaks don't scream. They whisper until the ship sinks. Let me ask you something. If every dollar you spent had to report to your future self, what would they say? Would they say, "We were deployed with purpose, General"? Or would they look at the ground and say, "We didn't know why we were sent, we were just released"? If your money cannot explain its mission, you are not in command. And if you are not in command, someone else is. Someone who profits every time you reach for comfort instead of clarity. There is a reason billion-dollar companies invest in psychological warfare. They study dopamine. They hire behavioral scientists. They test which colors and words bypass your logic and enter directly into your emotional core. You are not walking through a marketplace. You are walking through a battlefield designed to feel like a playground. But a true general smiles at the noise because he sees what lies beneath it. Impulse is easy to provoke, but intention is hard to break. So, build intention like a wall, layer by layer. Not overnight, but brick by brick. Start by asking this: does this serve my mission? Not, do I want this? Not, is it on sale? Not, will it make me feel better right now? But does this strengthen my strategy? If the answer is no, you don't need to feel guilty. You need to feel clear. Clarity does not come from deprivation. It comes from alignment. When you are aligned with your greater strategy, saying no doesn't feel like loss. It feels like strength. But let me warn you, the early stages of discipline feel like war. The enemy inside you will rise up. The cravings will speak louder. The comfort of past habits will claw at your resolve. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you have started to reclaim your command post. Victory does not come when the temptation disappears. It comes when it no longer dictates your actions. You will be tested. A friend will flash something they just bought, and your old self will ache to match them. An ad will appear at your weakest moment, and your old self will reach for the card. A bad day will whisper, "You deserve this," and your old self will nod. But you, the one who chooses intention, you will stand still. You will breathe. You will not reach, because now you see that a quick purchase is not a reward. It is a retreat, and you are done retreating. You are done buying things to impress people who do not notice. You are done trading your future peace for present noise. You are done building a palace of things when you could be building a fortress of control. Discipline is not austerity. It is design, and every choice you make is either strengthening the architecture of your future or setting fire to its foundation. Let others laugh now. Let them enjoy their impulses. Let them confuse chaos for freedom. You, however, will walk differently. You will move like a strategist. You will spend like a commander. And one day, you will stand on ground they cannot reach. Not because you were lucky, but because you were loyal. Loyal to your intention. Loyal to the version of you that did not flinch. Spending is not about money. It is about momentum. Impulse steals momentum. Intention creates it. And momentum is the difference between staying stuck and becoming sovereign. So ask yourself now, before the next swipe, before the next tap, before the next add to cart, am I moving forward, or am I just reacting? Because when reaction becomes your default, regret becomes your companion. And you were not born to live with regret. You were born to command. A man cannot build an empire if he cannot build a pause between impulse and action. That pause, that breath, is where freedom lives. Most believe freedom is the ability to buy what you want, when you want. But that is not freedom. That is exposure. That is marching into enemy territory without a shield simply because no one stopped you. The enemy doesn't always block your path. Sometimes, he opens every door and lets you walk into your own destruction. You must understand, true freedom is not the absence of limits. It is the presence of self-command. When you can say no, not because you have to, but because you choose to, you are free. When you delay gratification, not because you're broke, but because you are building, you are free. When you stop needing to prove something with your purchases and instead build silently, you become untouchable. Look closely at the strongest fortresses in history. They were built with foresight, not emotion. The same applies to wealth. You cannot construct a future from scattered reactions. It requires patience. And patience is not a passive state. It is the active restraint of a powerful mind. That restraint is what separates a soldier from a warlord, a consumer from a commander. Your spending reflects your internal chain of command. Is there order, or is every craving given immediate access to your treasury? Who stands guard at the gate of your resources? Who decides when the gate opens? Because if no one stands guard, the enemy doesn't need to break in. He's already inside. This is how it begins. A small expense here, just coffee. A random gadget there. It's only $20. A quick takeout meal. I had a long day. An impulse trip. I need a break. Each one, by itself, seems harmless. But together, they form a pattern. And patterns form character. And character determines outcome. So the question is not, what did I buy today? The question is, what kind of commander did I become today? Did you uphold the formation? Did you question the craving? Did you pause before acting? Because the pause is where identity is forged. The undisciplined have no pause. They move straight from desire to decision. No friction, no filter, no formation. But the disciplined? They build that space, a sacred space, between thought and action. And in that space, they evaluate the mission. Is this purchase reinforcement or distraction? Does this bring me closer to independence or deeper into dependence? Am I building momentum or seeking escape? These questions are your sword, and the answers, your map. Without them, you will roam through life surrounded by receipts and regrets, never quite understanding why you feel so behind despite how hard you work. Because this is the truth most avoid. It is not income that determines wealth. It is control. You can earn little and build much if you move with intention. You can earn much and lose everything if you move with impulse. Money is not loyal. It obeys whoever commands it best. And most people do not command. They plead. They hope. They react. But you must be different. You must think like the ancient tacticians, those who planned weeks in advance, who studied weather patterns, terrain, and enemy movement before making a single step. Your terrain is your budget. Your enemy is your emotion. Your mission is freedom. Plan like a general. Spend like a strategist. You do not need to eliminate all pleasure. You need to eliminate unplanned pleasure. Because pleasure, when earned and aligned with mission, becomes fuel. But pleasure pursued out of weakness becomes poison. And poison, taken in small doses, still kills. Let them say you're too strict. Let them mock your slowness. Let them wave their new possessions in your face like trophies. But you will not flinch, because you know something they don't. The quieter your movements, the louder your arrival. While they are distracted by consumption, you are constructing. While they are upgrading their lifestyle, you are upgrading your power. While they are chasing comfort, you are cultivating command. And command is a form of wealth no price tag can reach. Let your formation speak for you. Let your restraint make the noise. Let your future walk into rooms where your past could only dream. Because wealth is not what you show. It's what you don't have to explain. And intention, true, unwavering, battle-tested intention, always wins the long war. There is a silence that follows the disciplined man. Not the silence of lack, but the silence of presence. When your actions no longer need to be justified, when your purchases no longer need to be paraded, when your control over money becomes so natural that no one even sees the restraint anymore, that is when you begin to step into true command. Command is not loud. Wealth, when real, is not loud. Power, when earned, moves without needing applause. But here is the challenge. Silence is uncomfortable to the undisciplined. They spend to feel alive. They buy to feel movement. They chase noise to avoid confronting the stillness where their impulses scream. They do not understand the calm before the strike. And so they strike constantly, hoping to feel control by acting without it. But you must become a creature of calm, a master of controlled advance, not slow, not passive, strategic. You see, a general does not march every day. A general does not conquer every week. But every day he studies, prepares, reinforces. Every day he polishes the weapons, inspects the terrain, studies the movements of his enemy. That is you, when you wait before spending. That is you, when you deny the small urges that weaken your lines. You are not inactive. You are calculating. Let me be clear. Control is not denial. It is alignment. If your values say freedom, but your spending says enslavement, you are at war with yourself. And no enemy is more dangerous than the one within. So let us speak honestly now. What do your financial movements reveal? Because while others look at your balance sheet, I look at your behavioral patterns, the small choices, the flickers of inconsistency, the routines that seem harmless but signal collapse. Because war is not lost in one large battle, it is lost in the failure to see 1,000 small ones forming. Do you know where your money goes at night? Does it move like a soldier, assigned, directed, purposeful? Or does it wander like a deserter, looking for comfort without command? A good commander wakes before his army. He plans their route. He ensures they do not scatter. He keeps the mission clear even in moments of temptation. That is your duty, not to suppress spending, but to organize it. Money must be assigned, not released. It must have a destination before it has a direction. If you spend before assigning, you are not in control. You are reacting to the terrain rather than shaping it. This is why I say, budgets are not restrictions. They are war plans. They are formation diagrams. They are boundary lines. They are proof that you are not marching blind, but most avoid them. Why? Because a budget confronts the chaos they pretend isn't there. Because a plan forces them to admit that they've been operating without one. Because writing it down removes the comfort of ignorance. But comfort is not your ally. Clarity is. You must build systems, not just good intentions. Because intentions without systems are like soldiers without armor, brave but broken. And you must protect not just your money, but your energy. Every impulsive purchase costs energy to rationalize, to regret, to explain, to clean up after. These are hidden taxes on your focus, and a distracted general cannot win. So strip away the distractions, simplify, automate, set your strategy, then remove the friction that would make you doubt it. Your bank should not be a battlefield every week. Your mind should not be flooded with anxiety every time a bill arrives. Your heart should not ache with guilt every time a package shows up at your door. That is not wealth. That is war fatigue, and you deserve peace, but only if you earn it through formation. Peace is not the absence of bills. It is the presence of control. And control is not built in one weekend of budgeting. It is built in hundreds of quiet moments where you chose the plan over the craving. Let others live in noise. You will live in clarity. Let others chase status. You will chase sovereignty. Let others spend to feel better. You will spend to become better. This is how we win. Not with noise, but with order. Not with more, but with enough, directed well. Because wealth is not about the size of the treasury. It is about the strength of the commander who guards it. Let us now go deeper, beyond the numbers, past the spreadsheets, into the realm where true financial power lives, your identity. You spend according to who you believe you are, not who you say you are, not who you hope to become, but who you truly believe yourself to be in the silence when no one is watching. If you see yourself as a builder, your spending will reflect construction. If you see yourself as a reactor, your spending will mirror chaos. If you see yourself as unworthy of wealth, you will find ways to get rid of it. If you see yourself as disciplined, even temptation begins to respect you. The battlefield of money is not external. It is identity warfare. Every purchase is a reflection of your self-perception. Every impulse surrendered to is a vote for your limitations. Every moment of restraint, not just saving money but choosing alignment, is a step toward becoming the version of you who commands. And command is not loud. It is not visible. It is not performative. It is internal. You must ask, what kind of commander do I wish to become? And then ask, do my daily financial behaviors serve that becoming or betray it? Because if your purchases are driven by insecurity, you are feeding your weakness. If your budget is driven by guilt, you are still ruled by past mistakes. But if your spending becomes a tool, shaped, sharpened, deployed, then it becomes strategy. You see, even abundance requires discipline, especially abundance. It is easy to appear in control when there is nothing to control. But when you begin to earn more, when money arrives faster than your formation can handle, that is when collapse feels deceptively like expansion. This is why so many rise and fall within the same season. They build speed without structure. They increase volume without integrity. They chase scale without identity. And eventually, the noise consumes them. So I tell you now, build identity before income. Build command before growth. Because if you become the kind of person who can master $1,000, you are already halfway to mastering $100,000. And if you cannot master $1,000, you will never feel safe, no matter how much you earn. This is why the poor in discipline often remain poor, even if they earn well. They do not lose because of their jobs. They lose because of their identity. Because money, like a soldier, will reflect the character of its leader. A chaotic leader creates a scattered army. A fearful leader creates a reactive army. A visionary leader creates a cohesive, disciplined, unstoppable army, even if it's small. So the goal is not just more money. The goal is to become the kind of person money can trust. Can your money trust you? Can it trust that you will not betray it at the sight of a sale? Can it trust that you will direct it toward expansion, not escape? Can it trust that you are building a future, not just buying relief? Because the truth is this: wealth is not found, it is trusted, and money trusts those who can wait, those who can plan, those who do not chase every feeling like a child chasing fireflies. Feelings are fleeting, structure endures, so you must choose every day. Do I build my life based on moods or based on mission? Because moods shift with weather, but mission survives storms. You are not building a financial moment. You are building a financial fortress, one that will still stand even when your emotions collapse, one that will shelter your family even when the economy shakes, one that will protect your mind from the anxiety that haunts the undisciplined. That fortress begins with this truth: every dollar is a soldier, and every decision is a deployment. Spend accordingly. And if you must cut not from fear, but from strategy. Reduce what weakens the wall, increase what reinforces it. Do not reduce joy, reduce clutter. Do not reduce generosity, reduce noise. Do not reduce ambition, reduce self-sabotage. This is how a strategist thinks. This is how a general commands. This is how a legacy is built, not from luck, not from brilliance, but from identity that refuses to be ruled by impulse. You are no longer allowed to move like a bystander in your own war. You are the general now, and generals don't guess. They prepare. Most people live with no formation, only repetition. They repeat the same spending patterns, the same emotional justifications, the same avoidance of clarity, and they wonder why their results never change. But results do not come from effort alone. They come from alignment between thought and action, desire and discipline, vision and behavior. Without alignment, your intentions become empty promises. Your resolutions dissolve in comfort. Your goals drown in convenience. You do not need more goals. You need more alignment. And alignment is built in the trenches, not through declarations, but through decisions. Not through motivation, but through systems. Not through more money, but through more mastery of what you already have. Ask yourself, do I treat money like a loyal ally or a temporary visitor? Do I build rituals that reinforce my sovereignty? Or do I allow chaos to walk freely through the gates of my attention? Because wealth is not about how much enters. It's about how little escapes without purpose. You can earn 10 times what you used to and still feel broke. Why? Because more money cannot fill a formation that leaks at every edge. Until you seal the formation, expansion will only increase the speed of collapse. This is why poor spending habits with more money only create faster poverty. But here's the truth you must memorize. Every time you hold back from an unplanned expense, you are not losing. You are winning silently. Each moment you delay gratification, you are not depriving yourself, you are deploying strength. Every time you choose the plan over the pull of the present, you strengthen your inner command. This is invisible power. And invisible power becomes visible results. Not today, not tomorrow, but inevitably. Let others rush to visible wins. Let them chase dopamine. Let them mistake appearance for substance. You will build substance so deep that no appearance can match it. You will build in the dark until the results shine bright enough to speak for you. You will let your silence grow roots, because wealth is not something you grab. It is something you become. It is the result of compounding intention. And compounding begins with consistency, even when no one claps. Discipline is boring, and that's why most fail. They want fireworks. You build firewood. They want applause. You build systems. They want a quick dopamine rush. You want lifetime sovereignty. This is not just about money. This is about becoming the kind of person who cannot be moved by noise. Let others be impulsive. Let them act fast and regret faster. Let them trade their future for a new device or a fleeting thrill. You are not here for impulse. You are here for influence. And influence is purchased with restraint. That $40 item you almost bought, but didn't. That is influence over yourself. That $8 subscription you canceled, that is influence over your energy. That unneeded upgrade you walked away from, that is you, proving to your inner commander that the mission is still intact. Do you see now? Spending is never just about the item. It is a signal, a symbol, a message from you to you. What message are you sending? That your emotions rule, or that your clarity is too strong to bend? Because that's the real war, not over money, but over meaning. And if your money has no meaning, it will be captured by someone else's. Marketers will give it meaning. Comparison will give it meaning. Panic will give it meaning. But if you give it meaning, if you decide that every dollar must report to a cause greater than comfort, then no temptation can pull you far from your formation. You'll feel the pull, but you will not be moved. Because you have trained yourself in the ancient art of financial warfare. Delay, clarity, deployment, restraint, and eventually, dominion. Dominion is not just control over money, it is control over response. When the unexpected happens, and it will you panic and spend, or will you adapt and reinforce? When an emergency rises, will you fall apart financially, or will you be so well fortified that the storm feels like wind brushing past stone? This is what financial resilience means. It is not wealth as spectacle, it is wealth as structure, silent, tested, and unshakable. Most people prepare for comfort. You must prepare for volatility, not with fear, but with clarity. A warrior does not sharpen his blade in peace because he's paranoid. He does it because peace is the most strategic time to prepare for disruption. The disciplined do not wait for crisis to begin practicing control. They already are control. This is why I do not ask you to track expenses. I ask you to track command. It is not about how many dollars you spent. It is about how many decisions you made with intention. It is about how many times you paused instead of reacted. How many times you said, "Not now," and strengthened your spine with silence. Build a streak of discipline so long it becomes your nature. Let your restraint be so automatic that you do not even notice when you decline unnecessary pleasure. You simply move forward, unshaken, because the mission remains louder than the craving. And here is the deeper truth. You are not avoiding pleasure. You are choosing higher pleasure. There is pleasure in buying, but there is greater pleasure in knowing you could and chose not to. There is pleasure in comfort, but there is greater pleasure in knowing discomfort forged your new level of power. There is pleasure in fitting in. But there is unmatched pleasure in walking your own warpath while others waste their power imitating each other. You are not building for applause. You are building for ownership. Ownership of your time. Ownership of your decisions. Ownership of your destiny. Do not confuse control with limitation. Control is not what holds you back. It is what holds you together. Without it, your energy bleeds, your focus fractures, your foundation weakens. But with it, you move differently. Not slower, sharper. Not stricter, stronger. Your mind becomes a fortress. And in that fortress, your money is no longer a leash or a master or a ghost you're chasing. It becomes a soldier, calm, prepared, disciplined, precise. When you master your spending, you master your emotions. When you master your emotions, you master your energy. When you master your energy, there is no field where you do not become a force. This is how we win, not with intensity, but with consistency. You win by becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to resist temptation, because the mission has already overruled the noise. And when the mission leads, money follows. Let others build illusions. You build a base. Let others chase every discount. You chase sovereignty. Let others feel rich today. You become untouchable tomorrow. But tomorrow is purchased today, through the war of intention versus impulse. Win this war quietly, repeatedly, and the battlefield becomes yours. Now we enter the final terrain of mastery, where money becomes a mirror and spending becomes philosophy. Ask yourself, what does my spending philosophy say about how I see the world? Because money is not just economic, it is spiritual, psychological, strategic. If you spend out of fear, your worldview is scarcity. If you spend to impress, your worldview is insecurity. If you spend to escape, your worldview is fatigue. But if you spend to fortify, to align, to build, then your worldview is sovereignty. That is the final formation, where every transaction is not a reflex, but a reflection. Reflection of your values. Reflection of your preparation. Reflection of your battlefield awareness. A great commander does not just lead. He embodies the very order he expects from his army. You must become that kind of leader, not just of money, but of self. Because what impulse reveals is not greed, it reveals gap. A gap between who you are and who you claim to be. A gap between what you say you value and what you act upon in moments of quiet craving. Your job is not to fear that gap. Your job is to close it. Every time you delay a purchase to check if it aligns, you close it. Every time you say no when others say yes without thought, you close it. Every time you choose to not act until you are certain it serves the long strategy, you become closer to the version of yourself that cannot be shaken. And that version, disciplined, clear, unstoppable, becomes magnetic. You begin to notice that your presence holds weight, not because of what you wear or own, but because you are not pulled in 100 directions, because you don't chase, because your movements are few but final. This is not just about financial success. It is about psychological dominance over the false self. And there is no enemy more cunning than the version of you that says, "It's okay, just this once." That voice must be out-strategized, not with punishment, but with vision. When you forget your vision, impulse wins. When your vision is vivid, impulse vanishes. So if you find yourself tempted, don't fight the purchase. Fuel the vision. Remind yourself of why you chose this path. Remind yourself of what the future version of you deserves. Remind yourself of the fortress you are building while others decorate tents. That tent may look inviting now, lights, noise, laughter, but it collapses in the storm. Your fortress will not, because it was built one intentional brick at a time, one delayed swipe at a time, one quiet, not today, at a time. And when the flood comes, as it always does, you will remain standing. Let others wonder how you did it. Let them say you were lucky. You will know the truth, that every no you whispered was a yes to sovereignty, that every urge you overcame became armor, that every dollar you saved became a soldier standing guard. And now, you walk not in reaction, but in reign. You've learned that money is movement, that each transaction is a tactical decision, that impulse is the enemy and intention is the sword. But now you must ask yourself the question that ends all excuses. What am I really trying to buy? When you swipe your card, when you click the button, when you hand over cash, you are not just exchanging currency. You are trading for a feeling. You want to feel in control. You want to feel progress. You want to feel joy, status, escape, security. But if you do not understand that feeling, it will rule you. And when feelings rule, formation collapses. So now, in this final terrain, you must master not just money, but the inner narrative that money tries to soothe. Because here lies the root of all self-sabotage. People spend to fix emotions, not to execute strategy. A good day? Celebrate by spending. A bad day? Cope by spending. A boring day? Escape by spending. A fearful day? Secure by spending. And so the cycle repeats, until money becomes nothing more than an emotional butler, running errands for your unexamined moods. But that is not you anymore. You are not here to be soothed. You are here to be forged. Your emotions will rise. Let them. Observe them, but do not obey them. Let them speak, but do not hand them your treasury. Because a commander who lets his soldiers wander after every rumor is not in control, he is entertaining collapse. You must become the opposite. Still, focused, strategic. You no longer spend to prove. You no longer spend to soothe. You no longer spend to fill time. You spend because the mission requires it. And when the mission doesn't, you hold. You hold without flinching. You hold without explaining. You hold without applause. Because true power doesn't scream. It stays. It doesn't chase. It pulls. And now you are that force. You command your impulses. You direct your energy. You build in the quiet while others burn out in the noise. And here is the secret you've earned through war. The less you need to spend to feel whole, the more powerful you become. Because if you are no longer pulled by every sale, you are free. If you no longer envy what others show, you are sovereign. If you no longer use money to distract, impress, or escape, you have won the inner war. And from that victory comes something rare. Not just wealth, but peace. Not the peace of passive detachment, but the peace of trained self-mastery. The kind of peace that makes empires possible. So now, as you move forward, remember this. Let your spending reflect not your mood, but your mission. Let your account balance reflect not your worth, but your wisdom. Let your restraint speak louder than others' indulgence. You do not need to announce your strategy. Let the silence speak. Let your fortress rise. Let your actions compound until they cannot be ignored. And when they ask how you built so much with so little, how you stayed calm while they rushed, how you stayed consistent while they collapsed, you will not need to say a word, because the results will whisper what your impulses never could. You did not win because you had more. You won because you needed less.